I'm Arben Kane, and I'm a co-founder of Incentiv. I basically come from the background technology for now almost 30 years. And I just love solving basically problems. It's kind of like my hobby. But I also have this, history of actually getting involved with anything that has true purpose. And so I wanted to kind of give you an understanding of like why another layer one needed to be created. And when I'm basically, being approached to truly solve something that has to do with adoption, because I've been basically involved in a lot of layer ones, layer twos, layer zeros, ZK layers, and I'm seeing adoption as a core issue in our industry. And I also look at it and saying, okay, well, why, if Amazon comes in and plays basically this blockchain game, how relevant is every booth in here? How many companies in our industry would basically be obsolete? And when they play that game, are we relevant? And I think about the ethos of why actually I got into crypto and why blockchain actually became something of relevance for me. And it was just one sentence that basically got my attention, which is value transfer in a trustless environment. But then going through all these cycles and experiencing basically blockchain firsthand in DeFi, dApps, mining, staking, you name it all, you basically realize that a lot of bad actors out there are looking to take advantage of these complexities that we created in Web3 and then kind of exploit your assets or your users' assets. And it doesn't matter if it's Badger.com and what happened there, or if it happens with centralized, investment strategies like what you saw with Celsius and 3AC. All of that showed me that we are kind of creating more complex solutions that then allow bad actors to take advantage of our user base or the protocols and really not create the value because something's off. And then I look at DePIN and its relevance, and I say, didn't Meta try to do the metaverse? Why didn't it work? They had all the capital, they had all the users, they could do all the marketing, but they couldn't get anyone to actually adopt it. And it has something to do with the ethos that we stand for as blockchain entrepreneurs or crypto, heroes, as I call it, because we are brave and we're trying to change something about the system that is actually failing us. So what is holding blockchain back? And in my view, I look at all the protocols I've worked with, all the adoptions, and it just shows me that what is holding us back is that we kind of from the ground up are building something that's, again, centralized in nature. It doesn't matter if it's Solana, if it's Avalanche, if it's Sui. We have a foundation that makes the rules. They apply those rules. I bring in the big user base. On Solana, they're doing meme coin mints, and guess what? Everyone gets rugged. And we're seeing what is occurring right now with Trump Coin, Libra. All of that is showing us that basically the incentive structure is off. We're basically rugging our user base. The dApp providers are basically being sued by the SEC because they're creating a pump.fund solution. And what happens to Solana and the protocol? They seem to be not harmed. So my view really was, how do I actually build something that actually puts every stakeholder in a decentralized way as the contribution and the stakeholder of the whole network and the ecosystem by rewarding actually their contribution and basically making sure that they're being valued from day one, not just the foundation, not just from the first building block. So last year I went out and said, I like this idea. Let me put actually an engineering team and a UI specialist together, and let's look at what the problems are actually. And we went out and interviewed people at different conferences to basically understand, hey, what do you like and what you don't like about the blockchain industry?
Frustrating. I would say the most frustrating things are the barrier to entry.
How unsimple it is, I guess.
The fact that it's really, really, really difficult for anybody to understand what's going on. It's too crowded to use.
The most frustrating things.
UX experience. We need more people, users, and we need to break this ice and get into the masses.
What are the most frustrating things in blockchain technology?
I would say it's the user side right now, the consumer side of it.
Yeah, I would have to say it's actually creating applications for it.
Usability, connectability, and it's not ready yet for a mass audience. It's still very technical, so people who are, let's say, less advanced, they can't get into it.
So clearly we have some friction points that we need to solve. And a lot of you are basically trying to solve them. Each domain area, each domain expert is coming in here. But at the end, we're doing it kind of literally at the exit. The protocol is established, and at the end we're trying to create a DeFi strategy that then works with that protocol, and it's basically rules that we set from day one. And when the value of the protocol goes up, the protocol and the foundation becomes very basically rich and is able to invest into the ecosystem and get more adoption until something happens that then could be an exploit, could be the network goes down, or something actually just off. I mean, we've seen different scenarios in the past. Luna is a perfect example for me there. Or FTX in regards of like, you know, a made-up strategy there. But my main thing really what I was trying to figure out is like, okay, how do I add the ethos and the purpose into the layer from the foundation up and build actually something that has an architecture that creates an incentive structure so that all the stakeholders basically are being rewarded based on the utility of the layer one in itself. And how do I make it effortless? And when I look at effortless, I looked at every application out there that actually has millions of users. So I look at Venmo and I'm like, hey, if I actually want to Venmo something, it's very simple. The username, I don't have to worry about the massive address, Bitcoin address, Ethereum address. I can actually just send it to you. It works. I get confirmation. You can then use those funds. Your on-off ramping is already established. If you are not a Venmo user, I can invite you quite quickly. And you don't have to deal with seed phrases. So all these friction points are not there. So I'm like, what are we doing? Why are we creating more complexity? Oh wait, that's right. Because we're trying to make it decentralized. We want to actually not have a central system. We don't want to be exploited by the data-hungry companies like Meta or X or TikTok or whoever it is. So when I think about that, my main thing really is how do I make sure that simplicity, the 7-second attention span that we now have, which is actually less than a goldfish, which is actually in human condition now, how do I actually use that as like my entry point to build something that is sustainable, something that's decentralized, something that actually is resilient to what is coming next? And again, we have speculation, we have complexity, but we're failing to onboard mass adoption. So what we did at Incentiv, we said, okay, we gotta actually start with account abstraction being built into our chain, so that it doesn't require you user to basically figure out how to set up a seed phrase to set up an account. Fingerprint, Face ID, just an email account. Let you onboard as fast as possible, just like you do with any kind of Web2 experience. But it needs to be decentralized so that we don't want a central entity actually own all your data, because then at the end of the day, we're back in the meta thing where you're being milked for time, you're milked for your data, and they're becoming rich. Their shareholders basically are buying another jet, and you're trying to figure out how to, you know, not be addicted to this IG experience. So my main thing was really about, okay, how do I actually allow account abstractions to be part of the layer solution so that if we're building and scaling this, it's basically built into the secret sauce of our Web3 solution. And what I mean with that is that, okay, if you're paying with a token like a Pepe token, and you need to basically make sure that the other user getting Tether, that should be built into the protocol. Why is it such a complex thing of swapping? The fact that I have to go through multiple conversions of the asset type that I'm actually converting, to convert that, this is the application actually I want to convert on, and go through all these confirmation steps. That means I'm just allowing other hackers or bad actors to exploit myself in that process. And what that exploit does, it just creates vulnerability for our adoption cycles. Because I think most of you here have been exploited before. If not, I hope it doesn't happen. When it happens, it's like a big kick in the stomach, and it feels horrible, and you feel not safe. But we still continue to stand here because we see something in this revolution that is worth actually, pursuing. And what I mean with that is, like, I want to make sure that the bad actors don't have too many layers of access and vulnerabilities in our process of engagement. When I look at like Amazon and I set up an account on there, it's very simple. Why are we creating something that basically allows bad actors to actually intercept you in a confirmation process around your asset type, then actually take out those assets while you're actually confirming that you're transferring them to someone? So for us, it's very important that we're actually solving problems with each of those friction points that actually currently are not allowing our industry to grow. Just like I said, multi-step actions, make that one click. Schedule's dynamic. So for example, Shopify or Venmo, if I actually purchase something and I already have my shipping address and everything already established because I did already a prior purchase, why do I have to re-enter it again? The fact that I actually can just adopt, based on my user profile, that information and just have a one-click purchase option, that should be built into our chain. It should be something that is actually fundamental. In addition to that, we have something called a safeguard. How do we actually ensure that my assets are being actually held safe so that I'm not exposing them to an exploit? How do I actually schedule recurring payments and subscriptions that are basically continuous so that I don't have to set them up continuously, so that I'm not trapped in exploit that actually happened in Discord because there's a new NFT drop that I really want to mint, and I want to mint it really fast, and therefore I lost all my assets. I think I lost 3 NFTs on that. So easy to read addresses. I have plenty of friends, and me included, that basically, I'm like, how many times we have copy and pasted the wrong address, or how many times did I actually have a friend who had a security vulnerability where they copy and paste an address, they had some Trojan in there that actually then replaced that address with a new address. They thought, hey, I just copy and pasted, and instantly they lost their assets. And how do I actually create an onboarding and viral element into the chain where it's easy for me to go viral and actually invite people into my dApp without actually like creating frictions that I have 5% of crypto users adopting my dApp? I want to actually have all the Web2 users engage with my applications without actually making them feel like they're creating vulnerability from themselves. So really what we've been focused on is how do we solve key friction points within our ecosystem? And how do we bring it to life? And for me, it's important that everyone that's actually engaging in this protocol is engaging with a reward mechanism so that they actually know that their participation, if I'm a whale on a network, I want to actually be valued for my contribution of volume and engagement. If I have a dApp that actually is bringing massive value to the chain, I want to actually be valued. If I'm basically switching to a system, I will give you basically an onboarding grant through our ecosystem fund. But if you actually generating volume, I want you to be basically rewarded for that. So it's really about the stakeholders being part of the whole DePIN strategy from ground up, not just the foundation, not just the engineers, so that we actually have something that's sustainable and resilient for the growth dynamics that are occurring. Because otherwise we're just competing with multiple layers out there. And I look at, like, for example, Avalanche, how much revenue are they generating basically on their protocol? And how is that revenue actually sustain them as a foundation? And how does that actually work out long term? Are they going to sell their user base? Are they going to merge? Like, what is the monetization strategy on their side? Is it just staking assets? Is it DeFi? Is it actually NFTs? Is it gaming? Is it real-world asset wrapping? What does that mean? How is that solving a true problem? And how are those providers actually truly being rewarded for actually solving those problems within the network? So for me, it's really about monetization from day one. Every action counts, meaning that every action within the network is being rewarded continuously, transparent, so that it actually really goes back to why we're doing this. Transparency. It's on the ledger. That's why Elon right now is basically saying, hey, let's put all the government spending on blockchain. I agree. I want to know that. I want to run a real-time freaking audit. I want Ernst & Young and all those guys to go bankrupt. Because what? They're charging large fees to basically do an audit in a time where we basically can have a ledger system and instantly know in real time if you had steak, but you're claiming to be a vegetarian. I think that's the future I want to live in. A future of truth that's on-chain. And if you want to utilize ZKs because you want to have some privacy, do that. That's fine. But all of these solutions need to be combined in a way that's actually relevant and sustainable. So when I'm talking about the distribution model of Incentiv, it's really about like how we take the network fees, do convert them actually into the incentive token, and then create actually rewards that are distributed to all the stakeholders. And who the stakeholders is all the active wallets. Like why do an airdrop to actually inactive wallets that actually are just proxy wallets, what we're seeing in basically Solana, where you have snipers pushing it out to inactive wallets, and then they basically reintroducing those tokens back into the network. Wallet developers and app developers, I want to make sure that they actually be incentivized based on adoption flows. I want to make sure that network operators and node operators are actually being incentivized in the right way to actually have the right tools and reward system for them to become sustainable, because they are key. And when I'm talking about planet Earth, it's like, okay, even carbon tax credits, because I'm using electricity. And we even have an allocation to make sure that we have an offset on what it takes for us to actually run all these nodes. Because it's important that the purpose is very deep in regards of like how we actually integrate our model and think about, hey, where are we going to be 10 years from now if this truly scales into mass adoption? So what I'd like for you to do is actually check out our testnet. You can come to our booth. It's actually right back there. You can also inquire about our ecosystem fund and the grants that we have to onboard you as developers. And really actually test out that testnet in regards to seeing actually how well it works, how easy it is to use. What I love is that I actually see most of the passion that fuels me within all my team members. Their feedback is actually what actually gets me here on stage, because they're telling me that they're building something that's changing our industry. And that they're proud, not because they want to have a multi-billion-dollar market cap. Maybe that happens. That's actually more of like a secondary thing. Like an artist doesn't think about like how much his art's going to sell for. They're thinking about like how big of an impact this is going to have from a consensus perspective, from a new approach perspective. And when I hear that purpose-driven feedback from my team members, that makes me proud. And so I would love for you to actually meet some of them at our booth, even talk to me, for us to actually show you how we're changing the game of layer one. Because I think that layer one needs to be redefined. And that's exactly what we're doing with Incentiv. Thank you, guys.